Welcome to the Making You an Accurate Reflection of Christ podcast, where you become translucent glory. Now here's your host and glory teacher, Karen Pina.
Kingdom greetings. Here we are for Spiritual Ascension by Synchronization. That's a mouthful, right? Well, we're continuing in our episodes relative to spiritual ascension, and I want to talk about this topic today because it's very rare, very, very rare and unique, just like you and I. Let's jump in. In 2017, I was led to study the Hebraic calendar. And if you know me well, then you know that when I say study, I mean deep dive. I went deep into the Hebraic feast and how the sighting of a new moon ushers in a new month. Let me explain that last one and give you an example. Depending upon your location on the earth, you may see the moon rise and be in a new month, and I may not see it and therefore not be in a new month. At the end of this study, I prophesied that a day was quickly approaching where God would synchronize His children with His calendar. And if you've been following me for a minute, you know that I have been referencing this calendar for the past several years as a glory calendar that He has already prepared for you and I. The heart of this prophecy centered around knowing each person's geographical and spiritual location versus a flipping of the page on any specific calendar, whether it be a Gregorian or a Hebrew calendar. So over the past 2 to 3 years, I have been living in this prophecy, but in a concealed way. As you know, it's God's way to hide glory from us so that we, as kings in the earth, can discover it. Recently, I had such a discovery. From August 2017 to September 2017, I started to question everything about my future, about ministry. I wondered about our financial security. I assessed the growth of the ministry. I'm talking about the natural growth as well as the spiritual growth of those that we are called to. I turned very introspective and very quiet. I became very quiet. And before you know it, I was ready to supplement our income by getting a job. A job. Can you believe this? And I was hired. But it ended up being a short-term ministry assignment. Wow, the entire hiring process was a ministry assignment. I never worked one day for this employer. And then I found myself right back in the same place. And I was extremely angry. I said to my husband, "Do you realize that I go through this every year around this time?" This statement led me into inquisitive prayer with the Godhead of glory. As you may or may not know, the new year begins in September on the Hebrew calendar. Now, naturally speaking, what have most people been programmed to do a month or so before and even a couple of weeks after a new year? Most people slow it down to reflect on the previous year. Most people set business, ministry, personal, and financial goals for the upcoming year, right? And this is typically done by scheduling a vacation or scheduling some time away from all of the places that keep them busy. Some people take a trip to a different location. If the individual lives in a cold climate, he or she will travel to a warmer location, such as a Caribbean island. I know you've seen this, but have you examined and asked what is really going on? Wow. What's going on is that the individual is attempting to ascend by synchronization. While we may see this play out in the world system using a Gregorian calendar, something bigger is taking place spiritually. I can't tell you how frustrated I was for so many years due to not grasping this spiritual reality. What I can tell you is this: when I would see other people who were not committing to living a life as a glory vessel, I would say things like, wow, how nice it must be to plan things. Because I haven't been able to plan anything. And this kept me living in a perpetual state of concern about the inability to plan anything in life, in ministry, and in business. But this all changed when I learned about Ascension by synchronization. Ascension by synchronization is the way God tests you to see if you are ready for promotion into the new He has for you. This is not about merely flipping a page on a calendar from month to month or from December to January. Oh no. And this is why I do not subscribe to the new fad of receiving monthly prophecy. Oh, I'm completely aware of all of the scriptures of celebrating new moon feast, or stated differently, I am aware of celebrating the new month. However, you can turn all the pages. Let me let you hear them turning. Hear that? You can turn all the pages you want and still not qualify to ascend into a synchronized place on God's calendar for you. Let me tell you about a reality I consistently live in. I can go to sleep in one moon and wake up in a new moon. Now remember, new moon equates to a new month, which means I can go to sleep in one month and wake up in another. If I discern it, if I ra'ah it, if I see it, if I sense it, if I perceive it, I can be promoted by God literally overnight, completely independent of a calendar month or a calendar year. And this is why Colossians 2:16 warns us to not be judged by another man for celebrating the holy days, which are, yes, biblical feasts, but are also times when you ascend via synchronization. This ascension test for synchronization is passed like all the other tests that you are learning about. First, you rest. Second, you spend time, and I'm talking ample time, communing with Him. Next, you get quiet enough to hear what's going on. Moshaba. And respond to the testing in a Christ-like manner. Then you will be promoted and ascend into a new year. If you're going to live in glory, you must become comfortable with spending a lot of time alone with Him, because this is how you ascend. When you pass the test, you can ascend into the new year and step into everything that God desires. In short, all of His plans await you in this newly ascended place, which is often referred to as the new year. Now, here's what I've learned. If you have not become an accurate reflection of Christ in the previous year, you will not be able to implement God's new plans as they unfold. Here's what will happen. You'll spend all of your time second guessing, worrying, doubting, and questioning Him. In fact, you will enter into a form of cyclical prayer, consistently asking Him to show you what to do when He's placed it right in front of you. Ascension by synchronization isn't operating by a head knowledge. Instead, it is operating by spiritual knowledge. You are not operating based on a plan you came up with. Instead, you live from the plan He unfolds as you ascend. This means no more concerning yourself about planning for this aspect and planning for that aspect of your life. Let me tell you something profound. Your spirit man knows what to do. Your spirit man knows the plan. Wow. As you are being tested, the plan is being unraveled in your spirit man. Do you know that in Hebrew, when you look at the word plan from Jeremiah 29:11, it literally means to weave, to weave. The plans of God are weaved in your spirit man, and as you pass His tests to ascend, they are unwoven. They unfold. So all you need to do is allow your spirit man to lead you. This requires knowing the spiritual aspect of yourself very well and goes back to the foundational teaching on the U diagram on pages 75 and 76 in the Making book. Glory Ascendant, let me tell you, your spirit man should be so large and in charge, nisova, that you are able to respond to the desires, the thoughts, the suggestions, the urges, the whispers, and the counsel and the considerations of the Godhead of glory, because all of these can grace you to ascend rapidly from glory to glory, from strength to strength, and from faith to faith. As I receive the reality of the ascension of synchronization, I am able to rest in His plans and focus solely on living in His glory. I learned something as He revealed all of this to me, and I want to share it with you. The Hebrew word for thoughts or plans, depending on the translation of Jeremiah 29:11, can mean to invent or invention. What if God's plans for you haven't been finalized yet? What if He thinks of you as He tests you and considers what He will invent through you in your new year? I tell you, this is ascendant thinking that exists outside of man-made and worldly systems. And I know this episode may challenge some people who have adopted a carnal and worldly way of thinking, behaving, and living. And it may even challenge some type A personalities who have to control everything and have a spreadsheet for their spreadsheets. This is where doing your life's work becomes so pivotal. And as always, you have some work to do. Let's look at it. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to revisit the state of your being by pulling up pages 75 and 76 in the Making book. Second, if you are living in proper spiritual alignment, then seek out where you are on God's glory calendar. What cycle is He using to clue you in to the truth that it's test taking time? Number 3, have you been presented with the same test year after year without passing? And lastly, what is the area of Christ likeness He's requiring you to possess before ascending into your new year? That's right. This is your tailor-made new year that exists in the spirit realm, and it may or may not adhere to a man-made calendar, even if it is a Hebrew one. Personally, I discovered that my new year begins in the 6th month, Elul, on the Hebrew calendar, which is August on the Gregorian calendar. And by September of the Gregorian calendar, He's already determined what my new year will be, all contingent upon passing the tests that He ushers me into from right about June to the end of August. This is the reason why I typically rest during this time. This is why season 2 did not begin until January of this year, because I was being postured and positioned for my new year. And this is the level of clarity and detail that you can have when you do your work. 6 is the number of man, right? And that's the mind month of new. And 7 is an indication of completeness. Come on, Jesus. Come on. Hasatava. Okay, I'm going to leave you alone for now because you have work to do. And before I close, after you listen to this episode, rate it 5 stars because you know this is hidden manna and it isn't being dispensed everywhere. And then after you do your work, come back here and leave a written review. I want to hear about your discovery in glory. Until the next episode, blessings. Apostle Karen Pina here, your glory teacher and Ascension specialist, signing out.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. To discuss and learn more about this episode, join your Glory community at www.gloryschoolcommunity.com. Finally, be sure to sign up for the RSS feed to know when the next episode is uploaded.